Really tough job with this presentation. I have to talk about resumes for like 30 minutes. It's incredibly boring. So what I would ask for you guys to do is make this a little bit less of a boring presentation and chime in with any questions you have, comments, and your perspective about your job search. Because I find, I've done this presentation anywhere between 15 and 20 times. Every single time it turns out to be so different because of you guys and the perspective that you guys bring to your job search. So would love for you guys to interrupt me at any point. We do have time for questions, especially since we are kind of a small group. So let's have at it, guys. Who the heck am I? Why am I giving you guys this presentation? So I studied hotel administration, kind of random, right? At the Cornell School of Business, or the hotel school. And I helped students with their resumes, cover letters, you name it, to pretty much one-on-one help them out with either their job search or just whatever report they had to submit that day. Naturally, going to hotel school, I ended up going into hospitality as soon as I graduated. Hospitality is a really tough industry to be in. It's got a very demanding schedule, and I quickly realized that it wasn't for me. So I ended up managing a few restaurants in New York City, and wow, what a heck of a ride that was, working 80-hour shifts, trying to be the general manager of this crazy restaurant where people complain all the time. But I loved it a lot. It just wasn't where my career fit was naturally. So what I did was I ended up starting a resume service around the same time as Cornell, and ended up managing restaurants after that. That added up quickly to like 80, 90 hours of work. And once I realized that the resume business was working out, I decided to quit one and pursue the other. What a risk, but it ended up working out. I ended up becoming a certified resume writer through the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches, and founded Let's Eat Grandma, which is a professional resume writing service. So everything you learn today will come from my experience these last 4 or 5 years from working with clients all across the nation and helping them to redevelop their resumes. So that should say, yeah, what a mouthful, right? So we are 4.5 years old. That should say 1,000 happy clients and counting. We have helped clients in every single industry get jobs. We don't really focus on one, so I'm interested to hear where you guys are coming from. I also like to say, coming from hospitality, that was my one transferable skill that I wanted to bring across. But I like to say we have the best customer service in the entire online resume world. And yes, there is a world of 5,000 other ones of us, so we have to differentiate ourselves somehow. All right, enough about me. That's a little bit about my story and my kind of career transition out here. But what we'll do is we'll hear from you guys. So don't have to be that long. Just keep it nice, short, and sweet. Tell me about where you're coming from and where you want to go next in your career. And we will start over here with you, sir, and we'll snake it all the way around. So.
Oh, me?
Yeah. Sorry,
okay. So sorry. What do you want to hear first? Like what I've been doing?
Yeah. So where have you been in your career and where do you want to go? Most importantly.
So basically, I've been like managing like interactive events, typically for like team building, leadership, creativity training, conferences, that kind of thing. So
cool.
Did that for over a decade.
They're like learning events, or what type?
They're basically like games and competitions.
Nice.
Yeah. So we have an app we built in-house, and we kind of like deliver all the content through that. So essentially, I'm like running the events. As soon as the sale goes through, I'm basically handling the client until post-event. So I manage, we handle logistics, I create all the content, manage the routing on the app, and then run the events, get up on stage, blah, 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 blah. They do have a fun time, we do a big wrap-up. That's pretty much what I did. Yeah.
And that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Yeah.
That's a wrap. Lots of applause.
And so what are you looking to leverage?
I mean, so essentially, I'm going to look at things in like the startup world, and then any, even like advertising, anything like experiential design, those kinds of things. Because we wrote a lot of content at where I was too, so anything content driven. But yeah, I'm like really interested in like interactive and immersive sort of experiences and things like that.
Fantastic, cool. All right, we'll go with you.
Okay. Nikki Taylor. Feel weird. Who am I going to talk to? Let's see. I'm employed through the end of the month with a literary and entertainment agency. I am the director of audiobooks and speaking,
Nice.
and it's been really great. I've been there 2.5 years, but organizationally, there's some things that have changed lately, so I'm exiting and looking. It's not easy to just be like, okay, I'm a director of audiobooks, but I'm
That's a cool title.
hoping to take my transferable skills. Like I've been an executive assistant for 17 years. I've project managed. I used to be married to a professional musician, so I used to manage a recording studio and projects from start to finish. So I've got like the skill set that I really love to use, but I don't know where to plug it in or where to use it. You know, and I don't want to be tied to a desk at this point in life. I want to have a little flexibility. So if you'll know of anything that
Cool.
you'll hear of anything, I'm really I'm putting it out that like I'm really curious to hear about Indeed and all this stuff because it's been really hard to go through this process. But I'm open to remote or part-time, 2 part-times. I used to do a lot of consulting for. I worked in ministry for a while as well, so I a nonprofit, so creating like graphics, promotional things. So I've done kind of like a lot of things, but it's just trying to find that next step. And so, and I'm a single mom now, so I'm trying to do that in a way that I can still, you know, I'm the breadwinner, so I need to seriously look at this as like same caliber or more.
You need that money.
I
for
need
sure.
money. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
So I can definitely pick your brain about the audio stuff. I have a podcast for job seekers, and I need consulting advice. So we're about half a year old, so I'm trying to expand a little bit. So cool. All right.
My name is Justin Weeks. I have been a software engineering consultant for about 15 years. I went to Georgia Tech and got a computer science degree, just kind of fell into consulting gigs, and then I went out on my own and I worked with a lot of large retailers, mostly implementations of this an Oracle product called Oracle Commerce. So it's this Java-based framework that the retail clients buy, and then I make it work. So, but it's been a pigeonhole, and I've had to follow these clients around. And so this time around, I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to, I've been working remotely from a little beach town. I'm going to go to a happening city and just dive in and ditch my whole network of ex-coworkers and recruiters that I've worked with in the past, and see what happens. You know, roll the dice and come get some awesome
Austin's
high
great.
tech job.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. What do you say?
My name's Nathan Hastings. I've recently moved here from the Bay Area from my wife's opportunity, and she's an attorney, and I traditionally work in finance. I was most recently a finance manager at a dermatology collective that was backed by Goldman Sachs and was expanding that kind of thing. And so most ideally, I'd like to get into another finance manager role or be the finance director at a startup that grows, and then more long term, I'd like to get into VC.
Cool. I like the diversity here. Like it's good. It's not just like software engineer. It's like the same thing. So I like that we've got a mix. Not that there's anything wrong with software engineering. We're in Austin. So how about you?
I have a degree in sociology, but most of my background is in admin. Fell into it. But most of the positions I've had have been in a very unhappy, negative atmosphere.
Okay. For sure. So would you say it's like the people or like just the company culture in general, or?
Well, I worked for the
managers?
state since we moved here, and it moves very slow. And right now I work with some women who act like girls, and it's hard to just not walk out of there on a day.
Yeah.
looking for jobs, I feel like I'm banging pretty big.
Okay.
And I need more time.
Yeah, it's a tough thing because like when you look at a job posting on Indeed, like how do you not know that there's going to be this 5 women acting like girls? You know, it's
Yeah.
that's one thing David and I were talking about. It's like you never know, you know, until you actually try to figure out the company, show up to the interview, walk around, ask employees. It's part of the struggles of the job search. But
Yeah. And I'm wondering, like, when you get an interview and you walk in, is it okay to ask an employee, hey, like, what's it like? You know?
I mean, that's a good way, like that's the best person to ask, I would say, is the people that work there. And if you can get them to give you like a real honest answer, then all the more power to you. And not act like you're like sniffing around like a spy or anything, but cool.
Hi, I'm Brian. I'm an electronic records archivist. So what LLD really is digital preservation. If a company creates a record of some kind, be it photos or a Word doc or something that has long-term or permanent value to them, I will take that thing and put it in a format that is stable for access long-term. This kind of job has a lot of puzzle aspects, and it kind of weaves and goes different directions. So I manage a website for access to this, which has involved me doing like web design, responsive design, HTML, CSS, and then I started moving into mass data manipulation. So that's kind of pushed me into a Python, XSL type of world where I'm just manipulating large amounts of XML. So I've reached a point here where it's like I'm interested in keeping this kind of job. I really like this kind of work or different aspects of it, but just not where I'm at.
Okay.
And or you know, moving into something tech like data science, programming or something that still uses this without going crazy.
Okay. So far as it seems like people are making like these crazy career changes, it's like kind of just, you know, I mean, it's going to make things easier in terms of like when you're sending out resumes, but this is why I get to read it in the room before talking. Thanks. What are you?
Hi, my name is Raquel Robinson. I'm an engineering manager in the area of silicon validation. And I am originally from New York City. I went to school in Rochester, New York. I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for 16 years, Columbia, South Carolina for 3 years, and now I'm here in Austin. So Austin gives the opportunity to look at companies that I never considered working for in the past, in addition to a reorg within my company. So I'm going to put myself out there, and with over 20 years experience, I feel I have the experience to be at a director level. So that's what I'm shooting for, and then I have my plan B and my plan C.
There we go. Cool, thanks for sharing. David, you want to pop in with your story?
I'm a serial entrepreneur, engineer with a really bad data problem. So everything I see is a model. That's why I'm here, is to help model you guys through all of this. I'm building the robot to be on your side of the team and not on the other side of the team. Right? So this will be fun.
We need more advocates for job seekers because most people go straight to the companies because that's where they assume all the money is. They're just like wanting to attack the big companies. But I mean, you guys need the help just as much, sometimes if not more, than these companies. And if you guys aren't getting the help to find the right people, then the companies are going to miss out too. You guys are applying to all the wrong job postings because the companies aren't putting out good ones. Like that's all a factor. The reason why I have all of us go through our current, where we're at right now, where we're going to head, is because it really factors into how you write your resume and the types of things you include. So try to keep these things in mind as we go throughout this presentation. Now on to the material. So what are keywords? Keywords are, put simply, a phrase or a word that a recruiter can select to identify better matches. It's just like if you were to go to Google and to Google Mexican restaurants within New York City. Just to make things really simple, that's the way that the system works. Yorks. So you have within that Mexican restaurants and New York City. Oftentimes Google games it to where you don't even have to type in New York City because they assume they know where your IP address is, so they can just pull up those New York restaurants anyway. But you guys start to see where I'm heading with this. Really simple idea. So as a job seeker, when you're writing your different resumes, the thing you should be asking yourself is, what keywords will my prospective employer use to search for me? So the whole really goal of this presentation, as much as possible, at least the first half, would be to try to put yourself in the shoes of a recruiter or a hiring decision maker as much as possible. Quick quiz here. I just want to see what you guys think about ATS and all the myths involved and things like that. But how many of you guys think that A, there is a surefire way of knowing what keywords that a recruiter is using? How many of you guys think B, it is a guessing game and impossible to know what they are using? Or C, it's a guessing game and one can optimize the resume using some research and a targeted approach? So how many of you guys think that A, there is definitely a way of knowing what keywords a recruiter is using? How many of you guys think B, it's a guessing game and there really is no way to know what they're using? How many of you guys think C, it is a guessing game and one can optimize the resume using a research and targeted approach? Boom, that's every single person. And it's funny, every single time I run this presentation, there's always like a hand or two that raises their hand on A and B. I don't know if it's because you guys are really smart or what it is, but basically that's your answer. And I really want to dispel the myth that that you can definitely know like how good of a match your resume is to the job postings. And that's something that David and I are working on together during our partnership. But really at the end of the day, it's incredibly tough to know that there's a perfect match because there are several different applicant tracking systems out there, and there are different ways that recruiters can choose certain keywords. What we're going to be going over are best practices and what we think are the most likely keywords that a recruiter can use. So I'm not giving you guys the golden ticket to just get 1 million job offers tomorrow. That's not what this is. But really it should, with a lot of hard work and strategy, should increase the amount of interviews you're getting for those qualified job postings. That's the goal. Maybe after 2 years of David and I working together, we'll have such a perfect system going down. But until then, it hasn't been developed, and that's part of our challenge. So yes, it's a guessing game, guys. And you have to think about why applicant tracking systems are really important from the recruiter side. You really have to imagine them trying to Google their perfect candidate. They're going to have hundreds and hundreds. I think the average corporate job posting gets 120 applications, which I'm not saying that to intimidate you guys, but to give you guys some perspective on how the reason why corporate recruiters need to kind of find the right people at the very top of those systems. So, that being said, here is a screenshot, just in case you guys are not very acclimated, but this is Bullhorn, which is a type of applicant tracking system. So this recruiter typed in 3 keywords: accounting, accountant, and accounts. They put accounting in quotes, and it's blanking me on why. Would anyone know why you would put something in quotes? Oh, it's open, perfect. I like asking myself questions that I don't know and seeing if the audience.
You're asking?
Yeah.
So that way it doesn't return derivatives of the accounting, probably. I mean, that's how Google works. It just,
Yeah.
It has to be specifically accounting. And
I imagine it'd be similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
because right, when you type those quotes into Google, that means you're trying to find like exact match keywords, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, it comes up with sort of derivatives of those words, like accounted or accounting software or whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
I love it. Thank you. So they also give suggested keywords, so account and finance, and the recruiter in this search actually decided to highlight these. So I think it's really interesting, their algorithms and their ability to use software to smart in a really intelligent way to pull similar keywords. Blows my mind, and it's only going to get more and more advanced as we are finding out today. All right, so there's a really boring video for you guys to watch. Are you guys ready? It's like those science videos that you guys watch in 3rd grade. Like, they're really boring, they're cut and dry, but you learn a lot. So I'm hoping with this instructional video for recruiters with Taleo, you can put yourself in the perspective of recruiters a little bit more. someone to play it, and then we'll continue on with the presentation. Love the music. It's like 70s.
Recruiting new talented people to keep your company competitive or grow your business can be hard work. Tedious too. Poring over spreadsheets, searching job boards, working contact lists, emailing, coordination, paperwork. And who hasn't wasted time considering candidates who should never have been on the list? In the more than 3,800 companies, large and small, where recruiting is automated with Taleo Business Edition Recruit, things are different. Recruit on-demand software provides everything needed to find the best available people. Here's how. First, we make it easy to configure, so it matches your process. The recruiter, for example, might be the one to set the position requirements. Then we automatically extend your reach. These requirements, for example, will immediately flow, properly formatted, to internal and external websites. You'll reach passive job seekers and referrals through social networking sites. Powerful search features help find qualified candidates in your existing talent pool, so you can set up email campaigns targeted to bring you the talent you're looking for. Tools for managing candidates include pre-screening and ranking to sort out the best candidates and those who don't meet the position requirements. Contact management features, including Outlook and PDA integration, help coordinate approvals, interviews, and other tasks. The Outlook plugin gives users direct access to the Taleo platform without opening a browser or logging in. Recruit will parse Outlook email attachments for work experience, education, contact details, and other relevant information, and import it into the Recruit database. There are built-in controls and filters to support compliance efforts. Tools from Taleo partners expand the system, up-to-the-minute compensation recommendations. For example, the system can provide real-time views you can drill down into for every aspect of talent management. You'd expect a highly reliable, scalable system from the leader in talent acquisition. You might be surprised how fast you can get it running, how affordable it is, how easy it is to integrate. Here's where to learn more.
All right, so what did we learn from that video? I just spit something out.
It's 10 years old, so
Yeah.
we learned that they must not have changed much in the last 10 years.
It seems like the hiring managers have some degree of, at least can have some degree of specifying criteria, which then probably HR can specify more criteria, which gets all automatically parsed by some software, it looks like.
Yeah, fantastic.
As well as something that was new, it seemed like there was some software to automatically generate suggested salary ranges, perhaps for that applicant.
Yeah.
Based on their.
And this is like you said, this is an older video. I feel like they must have made some progress since then. Hopefully they have, but I think David said, shaking his head no. We believe that these applicant tracking systems the algorithms are a lot dumber than you think. And Teal will talk about that at the end, but Google is like this beautiful search engine that just like pulls the most intelligent things because it's sourced through all of us, the things that we're searching, but this is a lot further behind. However, there are some really cool things about it, like the fact that what blew my mind, and this is kind of changes the way I write resumes now, but it pulls from like different social media inputs. So they talked about Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and all those different things that you can source information and data from. So as job seekers, it's really important to make sure we integrate all of that. And I think it's incredibly important to look at your LinkedIn profile. Don't neglect your LinkedIn profile if it's any type of social media that you're trying to go for. Questions? Yeah.
Yeah, what you said about Twitter made me think, do you have any thoughts or perspectives on, because sometimes when people are out job seeking, they just delete their entire Facebook profile, and I don't know if that's sufficient to block any past searches, or I'm asking any thoughts on social media?
I know recruiters love to Facebook stalk. Like all of them, all the ones I've talked to do it. Like they love to check out your Facebook and to see what's going on. What else can they learn about you? I'm a fan of just making it private and keeping my Facebook, because I like to keep my Facebook stuff personal and my LinkedIn stuff professional. And I want to keep those connections I have on Facebook, because you never know if one might have a job opportunity for you.
And do you feel setting Facebook to private is sufficient to stop the recruiter stalking from finding out information?
I feel like it would. I don't really know I don't think it's that advanced to where it could, like, I don't know. I really don't know an answer. That's a really good question. But I imagine not. I imagine putting it private would help out. LinkedIn, if you can, if you're comfortable with it, make it open as much as possible. So hot tip number 1, love this slide. No common sources for keywords. So this should give you a little bit more focus as you're writing your resume. So normally I ask everyone, I like go through every single one of these and ask you guys how important they are. But instead, what I'll have you guys just shout out what you think is like, what do you guys think is the #1 hot source for a keyword? Like, what do you think recruiters are typing in the most in their keyword searches? Shout it out.
Nouns.
Nouns common to the position? Okay. All right, what else?
Position title.
Position title? Okay. What do you guys think are the least relevant ones?
Location.
Location?
Employer names.
Employer names?
Soft skills are just too hard to quantify because so I think that's hard for them.
You're onto something, sir. Yeah. So in a survey sent out to 1,000 different recruiters, basically asking what they use for keyword searches, this is what they came up with. So position title was the single most searched keyword in all of these recruiters. Nouns common to the position was the second highest, and I had actually placed those kind of hand in hand. These are incredibly important, and like accounting, for example, is a noun common to the position. Or if you're in software development, heck, all those programming languages like JavaScript might be a noun common to the position. Location is surprisingly more important as a search, and I kind of understand why. It's because a lot of times recruiters are trying to weed out the people who are applying from other cities. They want to get people who are right there in their city because they know they can show up to an interview the day or tomorrow, which makes it really hard for the job seekers who are coming from other cities and traveling outside. So when you're writing the resume, I'm always telling job seekers to find some way to get location within there. If you don't have a location, get it in the cover letter because that might help too. Employer names were searched. I'm sure it varies industry by industry. Like, gosh, in more competitive industries, I don't know, like if you're in investment banking, I'm sure I can imagine a recruiter searching for like Goldman Sachs or, Bank of America, I don't know, whatever. But some other industries, I imagine that won't be as relevant. But you have to kind of think about it kind of on a case-by-case basis. This is overall. In last place, this was not very searched, were degrees, certifications, and soft skills. Soft skills came in last place for the reasons you specified, which is like how could you, I can't really imagine a recruiter just like sitting down in their search and be like, thoughtful person, good communicator, team player. By the way, those are incredibly valuable skills to have. Like, I'm not knocking those skills. Like, those are, heck, these soft skills are more important than hard skills in half these positions. But in terms of a resume, if you're trying to game the system and include more keywords that you passed, this is where my focus would be. In fact, when I'm writing for clients, usually I'll try to show soft skills more than tell them. So I'll try to tell a story in the cover letter about a time where I was a good communicator, or talk about a time where I had to work, what was the word, like diplomacy, diplomatic type of professional they were looking for. So I told a story in a quick bullet point. So don't put your focus there. And I really would like us to all think about these first two things, and location.
The first one, position title, do you think that means they're searching for positions you've held in the past? Or?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that's I didn't even talk about that. That's the theory why of position title. It's because the easiest thing to do when you're searching for a candidate is to see how good they have the experience before. And I know some of you guys are like, but I haven't been a software developer yet. But I haven't been a director of engineering yet. I don't have that title yet. But these are the things, I recommend 2 things for that. First of all is finding some way to, I wouldn't say keyword stuff, but you can definitely get creative in terms of showing that you're able to fulfill a director of engineering position. And the second thing is to try to goes against the entire presentation, I understand. But try to bypass the ATS every way possible, because you'll see how sometimes these systems really suck. They're really tough to apply for sometimes, because on average, there's a 5% acceptance rate with interviews. I'm not saying not to apply, but you have to understand that it's really a numbers game at the end of the day. And I'm always telling people to go out and network. I feel like I'm hoping I'm preaching to the choir here, because you guys are attending meetups. And I imagine you guys are like the types of people who would go out and facilitate connections with the people you know. But sometimes I really need to get the point across to not just apply through applicant tracking systems, especially if you're looking to make a lateral move, if you're looking to get a promotion or career transition. That makes sense to everyone? Cool. I'm not a career coach by any means, but I work with a lot of them. So these are the things that they have seen a lot of success with. It's like those informational interviews, networking. But I will show you guys how to write a good ATS resume now. So that's what you guys came for.
I have a question about the position title. So
yeah.
Working for the state, I can say my job title is not actually what I do.
Yeah,
it's
that's a good
just
question.
one of those things where they have a classification, and then within that my working title might be this, or this is the job I'm doing, not the job that I'm actually titled. So would
yeah.
it be just put in what you're actually doing, what it should be, instead of what it is? Because on the one hand, that's lying. On the other hand, it doesn't help people to know I'm a specialist.
Yeah, or like a ninja.
Yeah,
another one I see. No, that's right. You bring up a good point. I'm thinking about all the clients I've written for in the past that have just had these ridiculously unique job titles that aren't helpful. I recommend, if possible, if it's not going to hurt your integrity, changing it somehow. Or one thing I've done in the past is I'll write my official title, and in parentheses I'll integrate the keyword I think is going to give the best hit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the reason I say integrity also is because you have to think there are some employment verification services where they may call up the company at some point after you've been hired or something and say, hey, is this person currently working at your company? I mean, had they worked at your company from this time to this time? I've gotten calls. I'm just a small startup resume company, and I have people call me about this crap. So you got to be careful with that. So if you think your company's going to be cool about it, then go for it. But I like the parentheses technique because you integrate both. Any other questions about position title?
So I mean, maybe adhere as closely to what they've listed as their position, and if you can get away with it, say it exactly the same.
Yes, I recommend it. Yeah, but be careful. But just be careful.
Right. As long as you can. I mean, for my job, I had to wear so many different hats. So
yeah.
So it's like applying to different positions. I have all these different titles that weren't the title I had, but at the same time, I'm I did that, I did that, I did that, but I
That's
have my
the beauty of where you're at, though.
Right.
Because that means you can get targeted with. I mean, you wear all these different hats. In your resume, pick one. Pick the one that suits the job posting the most, and tailor all those bullet points to that job posting.
Right. Okay.
I'm a founder and CEO of Let's Eat Grandma, but what does that mean if I'm applying for a marketing position? Doesn't mean jack squat. Oh, a founder. Oh, a CEO. Great fit. No one's gonna think that. But which I would totally do this if I was quitting my role and going to another position, I would totally change that title to in charge of marketing or director of marketing, in parentheses, founded company. That's the way I would do it. And then every single bullet point after that is all about the marketing stuff I did for this company. Started a podcast that generated X amount of users and increased our listening base 50% month over month. those are the things that win interviews. I digress. So be position oriented is really the point that I want to make. So in your resumes, don't just get down to like the industry or the type of job, but get down to the actual title as much as possible. So retail banking manager, information security analyst, high school mathematics teacher. Kind of breeze through this, but here is, I attended a Indeed webinar on how recruiters look for searches. But in this case, Indeed actually, you can probably talk more about this than I can, but Indeed does look very closely at location because it's one of the fields that they have to search for anyway. So in this case, what are you looking for? So registered nurse within pediatric and Chicago, Illinois. And here was the first page of resumes that were suggested for contact. So these are all people who have registered nurse, that specific position title, and keyword pediatric within their resume. And not coincidentally, a lot of these people were within a 30-mile radius of Chicago because that's the way the algorithms work. Another tip that I don't think a lot of people know is Indeed and a lot of these job postings tend to favor the people who have just recently updated their resumes. Did you guys know that? So like all of these, I believe, were recently updated. Yeah, I mean like August 20th. Okay, you guys don't know any of these dates because this is an old screenshot. But that's one thing that I've seen help people out. Yeah, recently updated.
So, and then that's like if you upload your or put your resume in Indeed. Like a lot of times on Indeed, they'll be like, do you want to use your Indeed resume or do you want to upload it? And then, so like, should you typically use the Indeed one? Because I've also been on business sites where they're like, apply through us, don't apply through Indeed, we'll want to read it.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've like, first of all, having it updated just would also guarantee that you're not getting contacted a bunch of like random job postings that are not, that were once good matches for you.
Okay.
I do also recommend like applying through the company job posting as well.
I mean that's what I've been doing is like,
yeah.
I might find it on Indeed or I might find it on
Yeah.
Built-in, but then I'll just go to their website because I'll want to read more about it anyway.
Yeah. Same goes for like LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter, all these, like don't just do LinkedIn Easy Apply. That's the easiest thing to do, obviously, but no, like go into the actual company posting and shoot that bad boy out.
Yeah.
That'll help. So, yeah, these are great questions. I don't always get great questions. So, anything else?
Does that suggest you should frequently update your resume and take cognitive searches, and if so, what kind of updates do you make every day or every week?
Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't, I guess, update it. Maybe that does suggest updating it for the sake of updating it. I don't know if that's what I'm suggesting, but all I'm saying is there is kind of a correlation between like how high your resume gets placed and whatnot. So Miranda was like the first person in this ATS search. And basically you can see every instance where the keyword was highlighted. So registered nurse, nurse. And they even have, like, you can email Miranda for $1. How great is that? If you have $1, you can email the candidate. So, and you have a copy and paste template for you to use to reach out to the candidate. Anyway, some stuff is like so impersonal, I think. So like, where do you look to find the keywords? It's a question I get a lot as a professional resume writer, but it's something to consider as well. I say the job postings you're applying for are the best source to look for these postings. And the second thing I would suggest is going to a government website, which I think has a lot of good data. It's called, oh wow, we should talk about this too, David. This one's called onetonline.org. Highly recommend. Have you been there before? Cool. Anyone else been to ONET Online? Okay, good stuff. So basically you can find out everything about a position, like potential keywords. You can talk about the salaries on average for these postings and skills.
Oh, can you go back to that?
Yeah, for sure. I may have a screenshot of it or a thing of it later, but
okay.
ONET Online. need, can you volunteer for, you have like the audio thing going on, so I'll have you read this next thing out loud, but we're gonna go and we're gonna read some different job postings, and we're gonna come up with the sample keywords that we think are gonna be used. So, all right.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Intellectual property law, firm partner. Advertised description. Prominent international law firm seeks a 2 to 7 year associate with an antitrust practice for the Washington, D.C. office. Experience with an antitrust discipline can be in any business or healthcare area.
You're hired. That was beautiful. Thank you. So, I always like, I want to like, there has to be like podcasting, like coaches out there, people who can like coach your speaking on like mic and things like that. So I don't know if you know anyone, but okay, cool. We're definitely talking about this. So what do you guys think are the keywords that this person's most likely to use?
Associate.
Antitrust.
Antitrust, associate,
Partner.
partner. Somebody said international. Cool. What else? What are we missing?
Maybe.
Washington, D.C. So this came from my favorite book, which is Resume Magic. This is where I learned a lot of what I know. But this is an exercise, so take it with sort of a grain of salt, but I think it's very telling. But in this exercise, the person chose associate, antitrust, partner, Washington, D.C. Once again, with position title, I think it's important to note always. Okay. Also, don't forget when you're looking at different job postings, I think people forget at the very top, this is really important to consider, is like the name of the position you're applying for. Don't forget that. All right, who is next? It's a long one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Junior project architect, advertised description, industry-leading construction, engineering, and design firm seeks qualified architects for Jacksonville, Florida-based positions. Qualified candidates, commercial, industrial, architectural experience, at least 5 years, requisite degree, certificates, licenses, and/or registrations that are applicable, excellent career opportunity with progressive industry leader, highly competitive salary, attractive benefits plan.
Thanks, love it. So what do you guys think are the keywords that this person would use in this exercise? Architects, good.
Commercial, industrial.
Commercial, industrial.
Construction.
Construction? Yeah. You guys are all right, and even if your word isn't listed in this exercise, like, I think you're all on the right track so far. But what else?
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, very good. Don't forget that. A lot of people do. All right, what else? I think you guys mostly covered it. I mean, if they got more specific with those certificates, you know, as a resume writer, a lot of the times I'll look at a cluster of job postings I'm applying for and say, okay, all of these need a PMP. Well, if you don't have a PMP, it doesn't really help, but that's something you would do, is try to see some specific certificates. So in the Resume Magic book exercise, they said construction, engineering, architect, commercial, industrial. You guys are all spot on. And then Jacksonville with that position, with that location. Cool. So let's see if I can do this. I think I can open the link through this. So this is a math teacher example of ONET Online, so you guys can see if this works. Should have checked that one out before I did this presentation, so I guess it doesn't work. But basically, you can go on the website. Everyone has this written down, how to get there. But you have pretty much all the information from the skills and tasks required, and these are things you can pull to include in the resume as well. So, cool. So in the ONET Online thing that you guys did not see because it didn't work, we extracted certain keywords. So mathematics teacher, post-secondary, assistant professor of mathematics, instructor, and then these were nouns common to the position, which is Blackboard, Microsoft Visual Basic. Heck, we threw in like a soft skill, because why not? But mainly the focus is definitely on position title, because that's definitely the stuff that works. So the final part of the presentation is how to actually integrate keywords into the resume. This is kind of where the magic of resume writing comes into play. A lot of it is very subjective, but you guys can know a good solid list of keywords, but if you don't know how to actually integrate it into the resume, it's going to turn out not looking very good. So I think if we can look and find some tactful ways to include that, I think that will help you guys out in your job search. So I wrote here in my notes, should you just copy and paste your keywords into a keyword section in your resume? What do you guys think?
Probably not.
I was just saying earlier, there was a guy who I met. What he did was he copied a list of keywords, and he pasted them into the resume. And he like shrunk it down to a size 1 font, and then made it clear so no one could see it.
I've heard. I had a friend told me he does that.
Oh really?
Yeah.
How did it work out for him?
Well, I mean, when I talked to him, I think he was still looking for work. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard that.
It's an interesting concept, and David and I were just talking about it. But even if you copy and paste those keywords and you're not the perfect match for the job posting, then that doesn't do anyone a good disservice, especially if it's like random. It's almost like if you got like a spam email or just a clickbait title that just got you interested, and then you opened it and it's like not what you thought. I would draw the same analogy towards a resume.
Like you might get to the interview stage,
But yeah, then it's like, what the heck is going on? So, so don't be clickbait. What I'm saying. So. Possibilities on where to include keywords. So this is the anatomy of a resume, or certain parts of the resume. So summary of qualifications, which is my favorite place to integrate keywords. Accomplishments, work experiences, contact information, and your file name. File name is one that no one knows. So in the example we looked at earlier, where this was for the intellectual property law firm partner, the keywords used that you guys selected were attorney, JD, antitrust, partner in Washington, D.C. So we're crafting a leading sentence within a summary of qualifications. So a summary, just to summarize it, is basically that section at the top of the resume that summarizes exactly what it says, all your past experiences and the things that you bring to the table. Some people don't include them, but I say it helps when you're trying to be targeted in your job search. So in this case, we crafted a leading sentence that said, seasoned attorney with 10 plus years experience serving Washington, D.C. clients in the antitrust discipline. So right off the bat, guys, we have attorney, Washington, D.C., and antitrust already integrated within the resume. A big mistake I think 99% of people make with their summary qualifications is they write some copy and paste BS, and just it looks like everyone else's resume. This can somewhat look like copy and paste BS. Yes, I get it. It's basically a bunch of keywords thrown together. So what I do recommend is having a hybrid approach. So have this keywords type event, and then back that up with relevant stuff you did on the job. So what were some projects as an attorney that you worked on? What are some specific accomplishments you've done? So I think that's what separates the people who have a really strong beginning to their resume and gets interviews, and people that you just want to throw it in the trash. So definitely write a good leading sentence. This is your best of the best, and I also recommend having some specific accomplishments as well. Any questions on this? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're talking about tailoring a resume for a specific target job. Do you know how or even if they allow it, like Indeed and multiple job search engines, how do they treat multiple resumes that might be targeted at different areas? Maybe you have several different directions you want to go in, or is that not recommended at all?
So you're saying apply to like one job posting through Indeed and then another?
Well, Indeed stores a copy of your resume. I've only had one submitted there. Honestly, I haven't looked at it in a while. But you know, if I'm applying directly to an actual company, let's say Google,
Yeah.
I have an opportunity to give them a custom resume.
Yeah, targeted. Yeah.
Right. So I think this kind of targeting, if you're pursuing multiple roles, would be more relevant to someone who's applying directly to the site itself, rather than, you know, having a general. Indeed doesn't offer general.
It's tough. Like, I know what you're saying. It's the same thing applies to LinkedIn. It's like you can only have like one profile, not a bunch.
Yes.
So in that case, what I would do, so say you are applying for like 2 different types of job postings, what I would do is find some way to put it all into one bucket and then come up with your keywords based on that bucket.
Yeah.
You can't really get hyper-targeted. I understand that's the problem if you're only submitting a general resume. That's why I think the job search sucks for so many people, is because like, oh, you're putting up a general resume and you're trying to match like all these random postings. Go ahead.
There's another strategy, just multiple Indeed accounts.
Ooh,
Nice.
Seriously,
Yeah.
Gmail, it's free.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
I've never heard that too, so
Yeah.
that's great.
No one would be able to
It's
call
just like,
out on that.
well, and I've used Indeed before, it's probably a really good idea because you can just close those accounts. Because once recruiters get you, they never let you go.
I know, that's, yeah,
They're
I try
like
to.
they're like an infectious disease that you just can't get rid of.
Yeah, we're talking about actually trying to get recruiters to find your resume. In my area, we actually try to avoid them. At least I try to get direct clients, you know,
Yeah.
instead of someone scraping off money off the top. But every industry is different.
Yeah, there's some like super hot industry. Like I know like some software developer industry, like here in Austin, there's one guy who's just complaining about all the recruiters that keep reaching out to him about. He's like, I don't want these jobs you're sending me. You know?
Yeah.
And some people are like, yes, like recruit me. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Different problems.
I like that idea about the multiple postings, so I'd like to look into that. So, cool. Are we on time? Time is 6:09. Okay, cool. So, accomplishment or work experience. So you can actually integrate, you can find crafty ways to integrate the keyword within your work experience. I'm not saying to stuff, but what I'm saying is to find a way to integrate that keyword if it was related to that thing you did. So if you have a bullet point that says, developed over 10 different software programs that reduce user time by at least 25%, and it's a good bullet point because it showcases the number and what it did for the company. However, if you're trying to attack product development, why not integrate that by simply putting product development at the beginning of the bullet point and saying product development, colon, same bullet point. One thing with this, and I think a catch with this approach, is like you kind of got to do it throughout your entire section. Otherwise, it looks like you're not being consistent. And as a resume writer, I'm always trying to make sure that each bullet point is like consistent. Otherwise, it looks bad. So if you're going to start off with an action verb, like developed, that's great. Make sure you start off every bullet point after with that action verb and it's in the same tense. But if you're going to do this keywords approach, then make sure you have other keywords to follow up with that for other bullet points. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Although, are you saying you would use the word developed over and over again, or just similar action words?
Action verbs,
Okay,
yeah.
good,
Yeah, you, don't use like manage.
Yeah.
Some people do, I do see that a lot actually.
You're a lawyer.
Yeah. It's like someone they were laughing earlier, but now they're not laughing.
Ping pong got serious.
Okay, cool. File name. Gosh, this is one that nobody does, but it was recommended in the book and I've used it. It works. So most people name their resume, they thoughtlessly put just John Smith resume. How many of you guys, be honest, how many of you guys do that? Yeah, most of the room? Exactly, it's always most of the room. However, get more targeted. So if you're applying for product development manager positions, change the document name to Smith product_development_manager. So that also not only tries to attack that keyword, but it also shows hiring decision makers that you're being targeted for that position. And it also makes less confusion for you as you're writing a bunch of different types of resumes out there. So, cool. PDF or Word doc? How are you guys uploading your resumes?
I've been doing order. I mean, I usually save both but then like a lot of times when I open it, or like I try and like send the PDF to like fit it into their own template, like if it just messes up the format.
It does.
And
that's the downfall with that.
Yeah, and so that's always really weird.
Yeah.
So I run a Word doc.
So it's like almost like if you try, how many of you guys have like tried to convert like a PDF to Word doc? Like what happens?
Yeah.
It just sucks. It's like the formatting, first of all, the formatting gets messed up, but not every keyword is picked up for that reason. And that's my theory behind submitting it as a PDF. It's like these systems are gonna try to scan a picture for those keywords. Probably gonna pick up most of them, but there's always that chance that it's not gonna perfectly read all those keywords. However, to what you said about the formatting getting messed up, yeah, it's gonna get messed up. Like PDFs are great because if you have these beautiful designed resumes and you want to make sure that the person gets it, then it's going to look fine. But I only recommend sending a PDF if you know somebody's actually going to open up that email and see that resume and get a shot at them. So I created a 4-minute YouTube video online, so if you guys want to know more, go ahead and Google resume, what is it, like PDF versus Word doc resumes. It's funny. It's actually not funny, it's very serious. Cool, any other questions? Awesome. Oh, one other note, this isn't even in the presentation, but a lot of you guys, there's probably a 20% chance that you guys have this problem with your resume, and that's like this double column fancy resume that you picked up from some website. It has like these horizontal lines. You guys know what I'm talking about with the resumes like that? So if you have a resume that has a bunch of really weird / fancy formatting because it's creative, that will probably work against you when you're submitting your resumes to the applicant tracking systems. And it's almost like for that same reason that when these things are scanning your resume, it's making it really hard to pick up on certain keywords. So I recommend as much as possible having single column and removing these icons. I think borderlines might get in the way of that as well. But I'm a big single column guy. It's just tried and true. That may be stopping you guys from getting results, so I have to throw that out there. Yeah.
Is there a particular font?
Font. That's a good question. I wrote a blog post. I'm going to post that for everyone to see. Just choose a really, I just attended a workshop which a recruiter said that, no, I'm not going to say it because if it's wrong, then it's going to throw it off. She said she recommended serif fonts as opposed to like sans serif because they said it was easier to pick up. Don't quote me on that though. I would just say pick a font that's really simple to read, like don't go crazy. What's one I use a lot? I think Garamond is elegant, Georgia looks good. People knock on Times New Roman. Somebody said that it was like showing up to a job interview in sweatpants, but I don't think so. I think Times New Roman looks great. They said that because it's like the default that everyone has, but I think it's good. So like choose like your classics, but don't pick anything that a typical Word document wouldn't have because that'll screw up things. So our company uses, I think it's called Lato as our font for Let's Eat Grandma. However, Lato is a Google font, and it's not actually found within Microsoft Word, so it's kind of annoying. Okay. True or false? ATS software is just scanning your resume for keywords in your application. answer is false. And that's based on, the video kind of alluded to that as well, because you're pulling, LinkedIn, you're pulling from Twitter and all these other different things. And most importantly, if you're filling out an application, you guys know those fields you type in to like answer almost like mini essays, or it's almost annoying because you're like copy and pasting what you already said in the resume and cover letter. They're scanning keywords in those sections as well. So I'm always telling, recruiters are always telling me too as well, make sure you fill out those different form fields within your applications as much as possible, because the algorithms are actually scanning those applications as well. So I think Taleo was the one who mentioned it, but they have a LinkedIn profile review feature with their system. So basically you can pull in your LinkedIn profile and also scan your LinkedIn for certain keywords to check to make sure you're a good match. So don't neglect other parts of the puzzle. And if you have a good LinkedIn profile, I do recommend including it at the very top of your resume as much as possible, because you're just offering recruiters another way of finding out more about you as well.
Is there an easy, so when I look at my LinkedIn profile, it's like some numbers and then it's like my name. Is there like an easy go-to
Yes.
for it?
So definitely remove those numbers.
Okay.
And also, I mean, if you're the only one with that name, then you're lucky, and you're not. Okay, cool. One I've heard is including your middle initial. Another I've heard is swapping your last name with your first name. I think that looks kind of weird. Some people put the in front of like the John Smith or something like that. I put my credential that I don't foresee myself losing for a long time. So Chris Villanueva, CPRW, which means Certified Professional Resume Writer. So you may have to get creative with it, but just lose the numbers though. It looks kind of, yeah, it doesn't help you.
So one thing I've seen through some like company websites, they'll like, I don't know, it's typically I think the same outsourced like application platform that they use, and like when you're inputting the information, they'll have like a field for like a head of where you like, so they still want an attached resume, but then there's like this big field of like kind of like what you would copy and paste a resume into, and it just seems really weird.
So wait, what is this?
It comes up like pretty much right after your name, like when you're just doing it online,
Yeah.
They'll all have like that field, and then there'll be a blank field, like tell us about yourself, but it's not. But then they'll still have a space later for cover letter, but they'll be like, here, attach your resume. So I'm like, well, just read my resume. I don't want to fill this field out. Like, what's the point? Because then it looks weird. Like, so I'm gonna have that same thing in two fields, and like it's kind of confusing. So
yeah, it's like it's the annoying glitch with all these applicant things, but like,
yeah.
I would say be the job seeker that errs on the side of including too much information rather than, because other job seekers are probably seeing that and be like, screw this, I'm gonna skip half that stuff.
Yeah.
But from a stupid robot perspective, I would just be as thorough as possible.
Look at it.
Yeah. These are great questions. Yeah.
How does resume length play into this? Because, I mean, there's you can get more keywords if your resume is longer.
It's longer.
Yeah, but there's a diminishing returns, I'm sure. I've heard a page for every 10 years, kind of being the minimal. That's hard.
Yeah. I know a guy, I disagree with what he says. What he did was he submits like 9-page resumes.
Wow.
And I hate that. I think recruiters hate that too. But he had a lot of experience, but he was applying for like consulting, project manager position. So I guess I can see, but I'm like, no one's gonna, I don't want to read this. Like, you want me to look at your resume to help you edit it, and like, I can't even possibly read through this in one sitting. So I don't recommend that. I think it's a bad approach if you actually open up the candidate's resume and it makes you not want to read it. However, if you have more experience, so I do write 2-page resumes. I have a client who has a lot of experience, and there is a way to include it. What I'll do is I'll make sure the first page is like the most important stuff, because 90% of stuff is going to get read on that first page, and then people are going to probably not even read it. Yeah. Make your second page your list where you have the keywords that you might be able to scan. So yeah, just remember like a person's gonna read it, so probably 2-page would help out in that case. But also your LinkedIn, if it's scanning your LinkedIn profile, then it'll help out with that as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Topic, is it crazy to try and keep a resume to 1 page, or is 2 pages what you usually see these days?
So say that again.
Is a 1-page resume not recommended?
So it depends. It depends on how much experience you have. I think a 1-page resume can be an advantage because it gets all of your stuff condensed. But honestly, if you have like 5 different relevant experiences, you have 15 to 20 years of relevant experience, like I'm not gonna knock a 2-page resume. But like 1-page resumes, if you have like less than 10 years of experience, and you have an education section. I have a podcast episode called How Long Should Your Resume Be? Send this to all of you guys afterwards. So, and if you guys have any other content that you guys want to know more of, I probably have something related to it. So let me know and I can copy and paste. I just want to help you guys out with your stuff. So, let me know. Okay. This is the hardest thing to explain, but I think it's a concept worth mentioning. But it's always be forward-looking. So I tell people, look to match with the position you're trying to fill, not necessarily your past experiences. And that's because I know a lot of you are career tweaking, I would say, and applying for positions that you may not have had in the past. So sometimes you will have to get creative and find ways to integrate certain keywords. So I think students are a great example of this because I just partnered with a coding academy called Covalence. So these are all people who are just learning how to code, and half the time these students have been like baristas, like restaurant managers, or some other random position that's not related. So they're having a lot of trouble in that case. So you have to get really creative. So really focus on the jobs you're applying for. Don't get too bogged down on all, like, oh, how do I frame my barista experience? Try to downplay that a little bit by cutting that stuff out as much as possible, and try to really focus on the skill set that you have. So with Covalence, I'm always telling these students, like, talk about some specific projects that you worked on. Talk about the things that you learned at Covalence. Take that education section, make it longer. There are a lot of ways you can be creative and show you're still qualified for the job.
I've been tempted to put projects, like personal projects, on, or a startup, if you will.
Yeah.
And in order to list skills that I haven't applied professionally in my job yet. But that can backfire, I think, too, depending on how the interview goes. I think it can get an interview. I think it activates some keywords. But
how do you think it could possibly backfire?
If you don't have, if you haven't delved in depth into these skill sets, let's say you haven't spent enough time on the project to be able to not BS your interview, but
right.
Kind of. So, but I think personal experience, personal project experience, and professional experience, basically you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's you don't have someone to vouch for you necessarily.
It's tough, and I don't know if you would chime in with input, but
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, but it's, we have the career coach who I partnered with. One thing he says is, like, just because it wasn't paid experience doesn't mean that it was completely relevant and that it can't land you a job and transition you well into that job. Yeah. So if it's the only thing you got going, I highly recommend including it. If it's going to put you in why would you apply for the position in the first place if it was going to put you in a position to where you couldn't learn the skill set and acclimate to it? I would truly apply for the job if you think you would thrive in it, but if you're trying to show you're a good match for it, I'm a proponent of including those projects, even if it was a startup, even if it was a volunteer experience. It's totally relevant.
Where would you put that? Like, in the very beginning of the resume, or like if it wasn't for like an actual job function, but it's like this project you're on the side doing?
I might create a project section. And that's if I don't have anything else going for me. Like, so in the Covalence student example, to where they never had been a software developer, I might either under their education section where they talk about Covalence, I might list some projects, or if something I've done in the past is just to create a whole other project section altogether.
And where would, I mean, and where would you put that?
Ordering. So ordering, you got to remember that the top third of the resume is what gets read the most. So if it's the most relevant thing, I might try to bring it to the top.
Okay.
Skills are something I usually leave for the bottom because it's a list and it's going to get scanned by the keywords anyway.
Okay.
So good questions. Anything else?
So the problem I usually have is I work on projects that I can't see the name on because it's our current technology and it won't be released out into industry. It's maybe a year or two after. And so it gets...
So you can't say the name, but can you talk about like what it was? Can you talk about anything related to the project?
Not really. I mean,
I would say,
I can't really talk about features because it gets...
You don't want to get in trouble. I'm not recommending people to like violate all their privacy clauses and things like that. But that may be something you may have to skip just because the company vouches for it. So you focus on other things. But I would say is like if you can't talk about the name, that's one thing. But if you can't even mention the top secret project like whatsoever, then that's another issue, in which I would say just leave it off completely. So yeah, I was gonna say, as one time I had a client who, I don't know, he wasn't able to disclose information. He wasn't able, what was I gonna say? He couldn't talk about who his top clients were. He had like all these awesome like accounts that he worked and like scored for his company. He was in like sales, but he wasn't able to name them per se, but he was able to actually talk about like their volume, and so you can kind of like deduce where they came from. So that's how I got creative with that. So yeah.
I guess like for the personal project thing too, and like LinkedIn would be kind of a good place to highlight those things, right? Like in your bio for
sure.
Also, yeah, I think one of the tricks with where I work is we write all this proprietary content, and like we even have a hard time sharing it with our clients. Like when they want examples ahead of time, it's like, all right, well, here's a couple, but like for real, we can't like open this up for you to copy. And so like I'm kind of, like I've created a website just for like portfolio reasons, and I'm like, all right, I give like a description of like this is the style in which we write. Which I wrote for this project, and here's like 2 examples, but there's a lot of them. But I can't, you know, it's like it's hard for them to like get a full sort of picture. But it's something that's relevant to me, you know, as far as like to show that I rate interesting content. But
one thing that I get sometimes is all people would be like, show me it before and after of your client's resume, because I want to see the work you put out. I'd be like, but I can't, it's privacy. I don't want to show you everything about their, like where they live, things like that. But like to what you said earlier is what I'll do is I'll have like a sample resume of something similar that I just made up all their statistics and stuff and kept it private. So, but LinkedIn, that's kind of a different one now because it's not public. So.
Well, I don't have my content on LinkedIn. It's like on my own website that I'm building. Cool.
But my company, they search your LinkedIn profile because like interns have released proprietary information.
Yeah.
And so
do you have premiums where you can see their faces pop up? Yeah.
Okay.
So do you have premiums where you can see like who's looking at your profile and stuff?
Yeah, I'm paying for that now.
Okay, that's good. It'll help. One time I had my boss look at my LinkedIn profile. I saw his face pop up in my feed. Got all sorts of nervous that day. I was also about to leave the company at the time, so that's why it made me nervous. Cool. If you guys don't have any, you guys have a question later, there's a lot of time at the end if you guys want to come talk, but we'll try to wrap this presentation up so we can give David enough time to talk about his perspective, and we'll have that LinkedIn party where we'll all just connect with each other, so that's fun. Okay. Guys, there is such a thing as taking this too far. Now with your newfound power, there comes a responsibility not to abuse that power. So please do not exaggerate your past performances. This isn't me giving you permission to just like overly bloat your resume. Yes, make yourself look good. That's what I do, is like I really phrase things in a very elegant way, because you have to. You have to make yourself stand out. But don't put yourself in an uncomfortable position to where you're just going to be, like you said, on the first day of the job and just not ready for it because you're not qualified for it. Not that I think you guys would do that, but it's just so we're clear. Keyword stuffing is not the way. That's not the answer. What I do recommend is tactfully integrating certain keywords within your job postings as they match with the things that you want to apply for. Don't put all your weight on the resume. I know you guys came for a resume talk, but this should also apply to your LinkedIn profile. Don't forget to fill out your job application form fields as thoroughly as possible too. And please, please do not just apply through Indeed, because that's one way as job seekers for us to lose a lot of our power, because these ATS systems are gamed very heavily in the favor of the recruiter, and that doesn't help. So instead, I highly recommend doing what you guys are doing, which is attending meetups like this, going through your personal network, meeting up with people on LinkedIn, seeing who they know who might be able to get you in touch, maybe with somebody who can give you an interview. I'm a huge fan of informational interviews, which is the concept of meeting with specific people in your industry to learn as much as possible about your skill and your position. And informational interviews, I think, are one of the best ways to meet people and eventually get jobs. So that's what I recommend. Not trying to be counterintuitive, but I want to give you guys a realistic expectation. Don't write for the robot. Don't just write for the robot, I should say. So remember, keywords open the door, but a good quality resume allows you to actually walk through the door. So we already talked about the spam email example. So the concept is you want to do one pass of your resume, one proofread for keywords, and the second proofread to make sure it has some good visual appeal and it has quantitative things within the resume. Does that make sense? So, cool. Oh, yes. Okay. Don't know if I should show this video now because it's 4 minutes. I could probably tell you a story within this time. But here was a client I had in 2015. He had literally applied to 1,000 positions. Imagine what it'd be like to apply for 1,000 different positions over the span of a year while you had another job. So this guy had an incredible amount of hustle and persistence. So I don't want to hear people who says, oh, I've applied to 20 job postings, I only heard back for one. It's nothing, guys, that's nothing compared to what you're able to do. That being said, what he was able to do was he was able to refine his approach. He just literally kept applying and applying, and he changed his resume into such a way to actually integrate in more keywords, and it demonstrated value as much as possible. Well, he ended up landing a job at PwC, which is a Fortune 500 company, maybe Fortune 50, I don't really know. What was that?
Go ahead.
Yeah. And the reason he was so tough is because he was in a position to where he didn't have the experience in the past, but he was applying for network security analyst positions, which that was a job he'd never had before. So he quadrupled his salary like through that time. I tell you guys like 1,000 resumes, not because I want you to apply 1,000 times, and I think that's incredibly hard, but sometimes if you're trying to make a big transition like Jonathan did, it takes a crap ton of hustle, a crap ton of persistence, and it takes networking and doing things like refining your resume in such ways. But it is possible, and literally every single one of you guys can accomplish it. Like I know where you're applying for, and there are positions out there for all of you guys. So don't give up. Yeah, go ahead.
So like on LinkedIn, I'll see a position, and so like, let's say a year ago, and I was stalking it, and that position is still there to this day, and like.
You already applied?
No, I didn't apply.
You didn't apply?
But I've been stalking it. And
Okay.
then like every so often, it'll like disappear for 2 days, and then it goes back up. So I'm like, is this a real position or is this a fake position?
Okay, so what are you alluding to? Like, should you apply for those positions or?
Yeah, I want to apply to real positions, not fake positions.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
There are fake positions out there, guys. It's really sad. Like, there are like several fake positions. I'm not saying this is what that company did, but there are scam companies out there putting up scam job postings on Indeed, and for whatever reason, I don't know, some companies actually will take your information to like steal like credit card information and like gather that stuff. So
Well, also I have a friend that's in HR, and she's like, yes, we do that because we want our company to look like we're hiring all the time.
oh yeah, yeah, they do that
So-
too. It's some BS. Yeah, so like not half these positions, but a lot of these positions that are posted are companies just post, they may have already filled it or they're looking to internally fill it. So that's another reason why I go back to what I was saying is like, don't just apply through applicant tracking systems because a lot of it's BS. And a lot of the times it's like really feeding people within your network, informational interviews and telling you is the way to go. So, but yes, that's another thing we have to deal with as job seekers. That's annoying. Also, I'm just trying to give you guys as much value as possible. Another random thing with that is I might recommend taking your address off the top of your contact information. Historically, as job seekers, we've always included our address, our residential address. However, it's becoming more uncommon and okay to actually take that out and just include your city and state at the top, zip code. And that's because that same reason, it's like you don't know where your resume is going to end up. You don't know who's going to be finding where your address is. Another horror story with that is some recruiters will copy your address from your resume and paste it and find out pretty much what your mortgage payment is and how much you make. They'll guess how much you make based off where you live. You can totally see it. Like, of course, they're trying to get a negotiating interview position. So they'll use that for leverage in your interview to like offer you a salary. So another reason to remove your contact information, your address at the top, and another kind of like inside view to how some recruiters think. So the sharks. Cool. Any other questions? You guys have been an amazing, amazing group. Seriously, I don't say this every time, but the questions you guys asked actually made this presentation a lot better. It made it 20% better than it normally is. So thank you for that. Basically, here's my contact information. It is chris@letseatgrandma.com. This is my personal business email address. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot this to me. Hopefully I'll remember to get around to it in the next few days, but I'll send you guys those resources we talked about. So was it that PDF versus Word doc video? How long should your resume be? And what was that third one? Not too sure. I think it was those two. But anything else that I think, informational interviews. Okay, we did a podcast about informational interviews that I think you guys could benefit from. So keep in contact, and we're gonna have, I'm gonna have David talk just for a couple of minutes about the app that he's developing with me. And then after that, we'll conclude with our LinkedIn party, and we'll finish up the room. But anyway, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys coming today.
Can I steal the whiteboard?
What was that?
Can I steal the whiteboard?
Do it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll let them get that.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow, that worked. Okay. You guys have been real patient, so I'm going to go through real quickly. All I'm going to do is back up a little bit about what Chris said. As he went through his thing, went through his presentation, I was listening. A couple of real quick points. So I write software that does the same thing that the job tracking systems do. So when you put your resume into the Indeed, I write the same kind of algorithms that they use on their side. And like Chris said, I've talked to a few of these guys, and I've been doing this for a while, so I think the best way I can help you is to kind of give you a little bit of the science behind all of this. The first thing I noticed was your mentioning of structure. That's really important because we've seen cases where these algorithm software, all they do is they take all of the text and they break it into pieces and they compare that with whatever the job description is or the search term is. And so if you have a series of dashes, some algorithms will discount your resume because of that, because it's not a relevant word. Okay, so they're just looking for matches. They're not looking for things that don't match. And things that don't match count against you. So I kind of put together a really quick hierarchy of how people search. So you have this raw, you have a raw search, which is a Boolean, which is just, do I match the words, right? So Boolean is just, it's not as sophisticated as Google search, but you put in your system architect, it will look for all the resumes that have system and they have architect in it. Then the next level is something I'll put in, which you love these really technical, a bag of words. So what they'll do is they'll take your resume, drop it into a bunch of words, order doesn't matter, and then they'll compare that against whatever the job position is. So usually it's the frequency of occurrence, so they'll look at the frequency of how often the word occurs. So I'm a data scientist. Data scientist occurs like 1% or 2% of the time in the position. It needs to occur 1 or 2% in my resume, right? So the tool that we're writing actually runs all of these algorithms behind. Then you can do a more sophisticated search where you actually consider sequence of terms. For example, you would do something like a bigram, or that's where word position matters. Those data and scientists occur next to each other, all right? And this is kind of the hierarchy, right? Some of the larger firms, larger search companies can only go to here, right? Because they have so many resumes and so many positions. And then you finally get into your what we'll call machine learning or your AI stuff, which is really usually a neural network. And a neural network will look at the structure and frequency and occurrence and all of that. So the tool that I'm working with Chris on will actually take your resume and take the opportunities and it will match these to it. And I suggest if you're going to look at going out there and you're doing your survey, first of all, look at your resume. And I think there's some tools out there, if you just Google word frequency, take your resume, post it into one of those tools, and count how many times certain words occur, okay? And then look at the particular opportunity that you're targeting, right? Whether it's at a certain company or whatever that is. And then, like Indeed, you go ahead and pull out your whole field. So in my case, I would look at data scientist Austin, and I would pull 20 or 30 of them, and then just glom them all together, right? One after another. You can do this in a Word document or a text editor or whatever, and put that in to determine the word frequencies, right? And then you'll get a list. Now, what's really interesting about this list is, back there. So this is totally bogus. I'm just pulling some that I can remember. But you wind up getting things like, so in the data scientist world, in my world, business was here. You find things out that like, so yeah, data makes sense, science makes a difference, but then you start talking about projects, businesses, and teams. So look at the top 10, right, the most frequently occurring words, and that'll kind of give you an idea about what you want to put into your resume, make your resume match the position. And then, like I said, if you're really detailed about it, you can do like I do, like David Mooring 1, David Mooring 2. Create a series of Google email accounts. Go in, I know it's a lot of trouble, go in and sign each one up with Indeed or whatever the job engines are. And then target your resume to that specific position. Now, like I said, I've automated this entire process. I wish I could make it open for everybody, but I'm not ready to do that yet. But Chris and his team are going to have access to it. I've used this tool, data scientist walks into a job search, and I've always gotten to the second round. Okay, and here's Dave's, and Chris, you can jump in and correct me in all of this. But I build a list of terms that I need to know, that I need to convey with my resume. And then when I get my first screening call, and it'll usually be somebody who doesn't have any relationship with the job. They're working from a checklist. So I'm making sure that I mention each one of these terms, right, and my experience relevant to those terms, because I've got my resume all set up right in front of me, so that they can check off everything. And then I'll get to the second round, and I actually have to keep this too. I won't say that I went in to pitch a contract, and it wound up being an employment offer, because if the numbers are big enough, I'm always interested. Plus, I'm doing this for a living, right, so this is interesting. And it was really interesting because I talked to two of the leading experts in the field. I was very excited to talk to them. But they were interviewing me, but they really didn't have any interviewing background, right? They didn't have any training. I've been trained in interviewing before. So what I would have to do in that position is to go through and cover each and every one of these, because guess what? They're going to have a meeting afterwards, and what do you think about day? And they're all going to start thinking about all of these different terms. And so I have to make sure that I cover those with them during the interview, or else it doesn't happen. So that's my recommendations just based on this. And like I said, we're starting to realize this is only a couple weeks old. But we're starting to put this technology underneath what Chris and his team are doing, and then we'll start pushing that out towards you guys. Right? Chris is in charge, but I'm thinking at some point you might get a little card or something, or I'm thinking an app, right? So when somebody calls you with a position, you're like, oh, here's the top terms I want to cover.
Yeah, that's the idea. It'll make things more like efficient, so you're not applying to a bunch of random positions. It's like, these are the positions that are the best match compared to your resume. That's the idea.
And there's a lot that I've left out. There's a lot of science and everything. If you have any more questions, go ahead and ask Chris, and I'm happy to like, you can't sleep one night or something. Yeah. Data science is a way to put yourself to sleep. I would kind of enhance something. This is not really, your job search is not really a guessing game on what they're searching for. I think it's more of a, of course, I'm a data scientist, so I'm thinking it's a percentage game, right? Certain recruiters are going to look for a certain thing, other recruiters are going to look for another thing. Right. So think in terms of, you know, if I hit all of these, then I'll get more of that percentage, I'll get more of those recruiters. Some recruiters you'll never be able to get just because they don't know what they're doing. Right. But I would think more of it in terms of that way. And structure is important, simple, 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 because these bag of words, these algorithms literally go through and say, let's break your resume out at every space, right? And each one of those spaces counts as a word. So if that space has a symbol or an icon or something in it, that counts as a word. But if I'm using one of these models where I'm looking at frequencies, that'll discount all my other important words in my document. And it's really funny because I was hiring a guy, and I ran his resume through this, and that was why he wasn't getting offers from any employers, because there's no matches. Because it's pretty, it had dashes and those straight line vertical lines. You don't want to do that. Okay, that's what I've got. Any questions you guys have?
You're saying that the dashes were actually summed up and it became one of the dominant keywords?
Yeah, it was a dominant word, right?
Yeah, the dash was
because, yeah, the algorithm's stupid.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So this is the same thing with fancy symbols and all of that.
Apply the bullet points as well that are like Microsoft. Who knows? Yeah.
Right. You know, so I'm an engineer and a data scientist and a little bit of OCD, so I'm not leaving that to chance. If you look at my resume, it's got 0. I mean, I indent white space. Right. I'm thinking usually these systems can remove spaces. Because you do this thing, it's a process. So I take your resume, I'm going to tokenize it. It's the first step, right? Which means I break it into words. Then I can stem the words even, right? I can take the ends off, and I'm just looking at roots. And then I can do things like counting the frequency if I'm going to do a Bayesian search. If I'm doing migrams, I'll start putting them together to make a mix and match, maybe stem, maybe not. And the machine learning side, I know companies that stem before they machine learn, and I know companies that say, hey, we're going to use the whole word. So for me, what that tells me is that when I'm looking at the terms that are used commonly in your profession, right, or the profession you're targeting, that's what you want to put more of those in, right, and less of the fluff. Good questions, guys. Y'all are a smart bunch. So that's it. I had a top secret clearance at one time. Imagine that interview. Right? You literally can't talk about anything because if you screw up, you go to jail. Yeah. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I really wanted to have him talk to like get his perspective from the data side of it, just to really show you how real this is and how we're really working to give you guys more power in your job searches. So we have about 8 minutes to make sure we wrap up all our loose ends and we make sure we're connected with each other and have all our connections. So I want everyone to grab their iPhones or Android, whatever you're using. Get the LinkedIn app downloaded if you do not have it right now. I'll be honest with you, I had to re-download the app last time we did this, so don't feel bad if that's you. Yeah.
Chris, I got to balance the AI geeks from me.
Oh yeah, meet the AI geeks.
Start at 6:30, right?
Yeah. That'll be fun. Probably can do some paper, esoteric. Always feeling insane and stupid every time.
Turn on your Bluetooth when you have that downloaded. I see Nikki Taylor. Wow, that was quick.
Waiting.
I just added you right now. Okay, so what you do, guys, once you have it, this is a really cool trick. Integrate this whenever you can in your life. But so at the bottom, click where it says the little people icon, where there's 2 people. And then find nearby is next to the number of connections you have. You click find nearby.
Oh, there you go.
And then I see all you guys. Wow. So I'm sending a request to Nathaniel Hastings, Mark Downs, Raquel Robinson, Justin Weeks. And your headline, guys, is so important. I see what you guys' headlines are, and I don't have to look at your profile. So that's why I tell people to pay extra attention to what they put in there.
So, do you recommend connecting with I've neglected my LinkedIn horribly because I usually get jobs through friends and such.
Yeah.
Connecting with people that aren't relevant to my world,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing. Do you recommend just expanding your network artificially from?
It depends on what you're trying to go for. I'm pretty open, to be honest. In terms of, I met all of you guys right now. These are all people I'd like to keep in touch with.
Potential clients.
Right.
As a business
right.
owner. Yeah.
But for you guys, knowing other potential job seekers, because this one time in this room, we had somebody connect, and somebody was actually able to get a job through the presentation here.
Nice.
So I like to think of networking as the more broad and open type scope. But to that question, what I will not do is people send me random requests all the time. They're usually trying to sell me something. But I don't knock that. Those people probably have a lot of hustle. But a lot of the times I'm kind of just I look and try to see why would this person want to connect with me if I've never seen them before in my life. So I tend to reject a lot more of those.
Yeah.
But in person, there's something special about being in a room together. And I think that's why Meetup is thriving so much. But I have made eye contact with all of you guys. There's this level of trust and rapport that gets developed, being in person.
Yeah.
So in person, I'm pretty open to it.
So if I'm looking at somebody, and I do this regularly, they have 500 plus connections. I'm trying to think they're not serious, but I've never even met them. I have no idea how they got hold of me. It looks like they're just trying to play a game like Facebook used to be 15 years ago, where you just try and get as many friends as possible to be popular. Or
Yeah.
they're trying to augment their network so they can look more important and therefore have a higher chance of getting a better job.
I would say to that, it's not about the number of connections you have. It's about quality of the connections you have and like the level of engagement. So one thing that a career coach said, ironically, this guy had 9,000 connections. I thought that blew my mind. But one thing he said is like, if you have a bunch of bad connections or people who like will never, ever, ever help you in your job search, then what you're doing is you're cluttering up your feed. And that feed can be really important because what you want to do is you want to engage with that feed. Like you want to like people's posts, you want to comment, give insightful remarks and things like that. So I would think about what you're using LinkedIn for. If you're using it to be strictly within your industry, then try to increase the amount of relevant information in your feed for your industry. So, and you can do that by following people too. You don't have to make connections, but you could have influencers, you could have people who you follow. I follow people in the recruiting, job seeking world. So, yeah. Awesome. Well, that's it. But if you guys have any questions or anything like that, I'll be sticking around for a few more minutes here. But I really enjoyed y'all's energy, and thanks for everything.
Good luck, everybody.
Hey.
I should probably sit right behind
You know, I got.
Oh yeah, I like make sure I like edit the hell out of mine.
Right, that's the thing.
Because I like
Yeah. And you can turn off edit notifications. It used to be like the default. It's like
Yeah, you
see when you
that's what
change.
someone told me is like make sure while you're changing your changes, like because everyone will get that like oh you're gonna change your profile, so you just turn that off and then go crazy.
That's what I've done.
Good. Yeah, Mr. Next. Let's do that.
Sorry.
From what?
Sorry, any questions or anything?
Oh, yeah, from the,
Yeah.
so you got the
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
from the,
Yeah.
I read
I just have my email
RSVP
address.
on the web and the link is
It has to be one of the.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
let's put like a thing on it.
Standing
Oh,
up.
like a person, like a.
Yeah, but the problem is not everyone shows up anyway,
Yeah.
so I should have said it a little bit higher, so it's probably my fault, but yeah.
Oh, okay, so yeah, probably, yeah, because they came by and it was full, so I'm like, oh.
Oh man, well, glad you, so it's
So,
exciting.
Kind of like.
Could you find it, could you put it on my resume?
So what I can do is, I can send you the slides.
Yeah.
I like
What our
it.
company
I
does
love it.
is
I
offers something
love
called
it.
the Find Underscore.
Yeah.
And when you submit it to my website, what we'll do is,
That's
we'll score your resume on a scale of 1 to 100.
It was a Dillard's
And
in
then
that
what we'll do
Marshall.
is, you can set up like a phone call if you're interested in getting connected.
I remember
That's a good way to
that
get
shelter,
connected.
it was like
Yeah.
a
There's
movie
a lot
theater.
of those.
So.
Yeah.
I was thinking like right by there too.
Well, you had to
Like,
turn it
go
down.
into.
I guess like when you.
Let's eat
So.
grandma.
How did you come up with that name? This-
I just thought it was funny.
I thought it was trying to signify the importance of grammar, like.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
comma
yeah.
makes a difference.
That's it, that's it.
Yeah, okay,
That's like
yeah.
that's the logic behind it.
Okay.
And then like we're a writing company, so we take our punctuation seriously.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people like it's either hit or miss, but that was kind of the point. I wanted to evoke like emotion in people.
Right.
So
But it's funny because you
I know, it looks like
say it, you actually say it the way
What
that's
do you do when you're like a creative or you're a,
offensive.
you have all these kind
Let's
of
see.
just different
let's
things,
eat
like I'm
grandma.
writing
Yeah,
stuff.
get some pause, otherwise it's.
Boring. Like, I don't wanna-
There is, it's good, so let's eat grandma.com.
Like on
That's-
built-in called startup.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
All right, there's actually a band called Let's Eat Grandma.
pretty boring. It's like they have cool stuff to do.
They're destroying my
that's
SEO
work related.
because
Yeah.
they're blowing up.
Yeah, but
Like
actually-
good packages, but yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Like
Good proposition.
I'm not even personally talking
Yeah.
about,
Or like do some sort of like weird collaboration. They're like this deep, they're like a deep dark indie.
It's not fun, because some people like that, but
Yeah,
It's a great
it's a yellow website, so you'll see a lot of yellow.
Well, right, like,
Experience.
I'm like, yeah, because I think you have this whole experience, like, executive experience where it's like, you're gonna make decisions and all this, and it's like, I look at similar things.
This is recorded
And
on
it's
YouTube.
like, oh, it's,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
so we're like,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
this,
so-
and like,
Yeah, so if you go
I can
to,
do all
it's
of it,
called
and
Austin Tech
it's not just
Labs.
like one part
Oh,
of it.
yeah, yeah.
And like, you like a day, or I don't know when I'll post it, but
Very inspiring.
they post like all the meetups and stuff that are, basically
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can watch it every day.
For that.
These guys are all asking really good questions too, so it's probably good to watch.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Thank you very much.
And so like, one thing is like, it's like they wrote all this content,
Right.
and then it's like so specific, and it's like, and then trying to like explain how it's like.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for
Good.
coming by.
Yeah.
We'll keep in touch.
Being able
We'll
to
share
we'll,
all of it.
we'll connect on LinkedIn and stuff.
Even though I have like a
and,
lot of
I'll
creative
send out
writing
those
to
links.
do,
If
but
you have any interviews,
yeah, like how do I share that? Like
I haven't even
Really only
sent
like,
you the
show this
applications
with like
or
relevant.
anything.
Okay. Starting your
Personal.
learning
Yeah.
process, their learning journey.
Yeah,
there's
I just wanted to be around
Then
people
it's like,
that
yeah, all the
I mean,
writing,
unless you
like,
have
content
some
stuff.
Because it
specialized
gets my
skills
Great copy.
that a
That's
project
easily.
is
I think
gonna
that's the
fail,
bad
idea.
they'll
Yeah,
take,
it's like,
they'll take
but as far
the
as you have it,
of
I
the
attended
salary
a,
to
so
hire
it was
then
kind of like a
that's
meetup,
specific,
but it was,
but I guess I could.
how to, it's called
Marketing.
create hella good content. So that's my idea,
Yeah.
create like a big blog post, podcast, things like that. And so to see all the other people in the room asking all these questions, like it got me inspired to like really up my content game.
Exactly, you can kind of get a sense of the competition.
Yeah, that's true.
Cooperation and
Specifically on it.
Yeah.
So you just kind of
Yeah.
like sit
Oh,
there.
meetup's great.
So it's a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
I might head up to the CI.
Promotional materials.
I would do that too if I was in the
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough for it,
But
so.
it's very, you know, we already have.
All right, take care.
All right,
Thanks a
see ya.
lot. Oh, yeah, you guys. Yeah, nice meeting you guys. Yeah, I'm Justin. Mark. Nice meeting you. Yeah, we're connected on LinkedIn.
We're
so-
all connected now. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Hopefully I'll be changing my job title soon.
Right.
You will, you will.
Yes. Awesome. See ya.
Good.
And unfortunately, depending upon the company,
So,
some companies don't back.
complex, and I know, you know, I feel kind of bound by
Whoever's left on the
Yeah,
list,
yeah.
they're,
Yeah, me too.
is divided up.
Yeah.
It happens.
And I'm like, I just take, you know.
So yeah, and then for me, it's been like the process, like how do I manage my time? Because like then it's like I'm also like trying to work on. I've also want to clean your resume, clean your LinkedIn, this website, profile, but then also applying for jobs and like even just researching companies, and then also like oh yeah, these other projects that because I.
But you know, one difference,
Like oh like.
I used to work for the
I want
city of
these cool
Phoenix,
projects,
city of
and
Phoenix.
those will
But
be
one thing
something,
about working for
you know,
the
because they're making me as much money as anything else.
Right, I know.
So I'm like,
Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was,
Well,
I think that was the key to.
Wait, tell me your name one more time.
Mark.
Mark.
Yeah.
Nikki. So.
And I definitely.
Maybe
that
I'll
was
find
the
out.
piece, and,
Yes, I
Let's see,
will.
we're on
I
it.
keep wanting to call it
Yeah, me too.
You know, my first go at a resume, a couple weeks ago, I contacted my old supervisor, you know, just said, you know, I have a good relationship with him. I was like, hey, could you look over my resume? He looked at it and I was like,
Yeah.
he gave me like a total makeover. I was like, okay,
I mean, it's
apparently
really
my
helpful.
brain was just not, you know, in that
You should have seen,
mindset.
yeah, my first one, like when I started, like, I mean, it's still a big company. I was like looking all last year, but I travel a lot, so I'm like.
Three
focus on
girls,
this. So I had,
No.
I didn't even know how to explain, like,
Yeah, it's
I didn't know how like, the words to use really, and then it's like.
So I have a
just trying to
father and
sit down and be
son.
like,
I
what
manage,
did I actually
I
do?
manage
And
the
I'm like, oh, I
son,
actually did a lot.
but the father
I know,
is like.
that's
So
the thing.
after a while, like, yeah, cool, and then, you know, I went to the same, I actually went to another.
And so I would have to, we would be in a meeting and you would like, be in charge of something, and the way you spoke to him,
So that was cool.
the
He
son
had-
tones,
it was
I
like
would
his
follow
own
with the
voice.
son, and I would interject.
And then-
He's got a twin?
And I'm just.
Oh, that's okay.
And then I,
He's mine.
he's in this.
Okay.
And then,
So, can't talk to
the,
him like that here.
I talked to General Assembly.
Yeah.
And he
Like, well,
sometimes
yeah, this,
acted like he
this
was
guy was in my
upset.
apartment,
He
like,
was, oh, I
was
can't
talking
believe
to
the day your father
somebody,
retired.
so I talked to her.
Because they used to look at programs,
And she like,
you know.
she actually really good.
All kinds.
Good.
That's not
Yeah.
real world. So.
So that helped. She was like, her main thing was like, get rid of white space and go.